Now that I showed you where to get your plants for free, now I want to show you how to multiply those plants. Let me show you how to grow free plants forever with the power of propagation. Hi, hello everyone, welcome. You want to say something over there? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Olivia if you're new here, and I talk everything succulents, everything from propagation to growing your succulents, cutting them, multiplying them, all of the above. Please consider following if you haven't already. Today I'm going to talk to you about the power of propagation. Last time I showed you how I like to get my free plants out and about. So now that you have your free plants, I want to show you how to multiply them and turn them into more and essentially grow free plants forever. That's how I've done it. I've attained such a big garden of succulents over the years, succulents and other plants as well, but my love for succulents is really where it's at. One thing I'll say is don't worry if you feel like you don't have a lot of plants to pick from when it comes to leaves. We all have to start somewhere. I started with just a few plants in the beginning. I didn't have as many as I did here as you see in front of me, but we all have to start somewhere. I started with a little paper plate full of leaves. So like I said, if you have a few leaves, that's perfect. You don't need as much as I have right here. Just use what you already have. I'm actually expanding my propagation station, and it's something that you'll be able to do too in a short amount of time if you let go a little more and not be so emotionally attached to your plants. Once you start chopping and the more leaves you start pulling, the more plants you can acquire, like you see here. So don't be afraid to chop your plants. I was really afraid to do so in the beginning, and the longer I let those plants sit, they were beautiful and they got a little bigger, but it really didn't give me the opportunity to grow as many as I have without cutting and chopping. And it's a little bit scary, but I promise you, you'll never look back, and the results are beautiful. You'll start to get so many babies, and you'll start chopping here and there like I have every single day. You're gonna grow a lot more plants than you've ever imagined. One of the things I'm gonna do today is move my propagation station. Like I said, I want to expand. Maybe I could give you an idea of how you can set up your propagation station, but yeah, let me show you guys. Okay, the first big thing that I can say before setting up anything in your propagation station, the most important thing about this whole thing is having indirect sunlight. As you can see, I have this tarp here with a little back wall, and I'm gonna actually put up another wall right here because as you can see, there's some light coming in. Direct sunlight is something that I don't like when it comes to my propagation station. Sometimes, especially with the spring rolling in and then shortly after the summertime, a lot of those babies are really sensitive, especially since they're a little bit on the smaller side and they're just starting to grow their own root system. They are really sensitive to light. I like keeping them in the shade or indirect sunlight. That is going to give you more of a successful propagation when it comes to growing any babies. So if I could give you any tips when it comes to propagating, that is the biggest one, and trust me, you're not going to regret it. If anywhere around your house that you could find. In the beginning, I used a small construction tarp and I put it over the side of my house. I think I have a video. I'm going to put it right here somewhere so you can see. But I used the construction tarp, the clear one, so I got a good amount of light but not direct sunlight. I like using these party tables so I can have them kind of spread out here and just put them across each side. I'm gonna have two sides. One is gonna be for the actual propagation station when it comes to laying out the leaves, and the second side is for the next stage, which is when you're able to transfer those babies and put them into their own little pots. But yeah, those are the two stations that I would start with: indirect sunlight and somewhere to put your succulents. So I guess a little pre-spring cleaning, if you will. Let's just start moving everything over there and let me show you the process. Enough room to really pack it down and just put them all together so I can have the opportunity to pluck even more leaves and add some more over here. I have some more pots right here. I'm gonna leave some pots on this side, so that way once these babies get a little more mature, like there's some that are ready to be transferred and potted over, like some of these. I have my pots ready. As far as gardening tools go, you don't really need any of that. The best thing you can use, your hands. You can use your hands to pluck leaves. You can use your hands to tear some of the heads off your succulents. That's how I started. I didn't start with any gardening tools at all. The most thing that I would say to invest in when it comes to growing free plants forever, obviously soil. So if you can invest like $15 to $20, that would be perfect to start off with. All you need is a good soil, a good cactus soil, some pumice stone, and some pots where you can get from the dollar store. Use what you already have. That's the main point of this whole thing. Use what you have, use the plants that you have, use the tools that you have. Anything will work, even if you don't have any room outside, or maybe you don't even have extra space like a backyard. It's totally fine to grow succulent leaves indoors. You can put them along your windowsill inside your bedroom. You can put them near your kitchen, maybe where you get some indirect sunlight. Anywhere works. Succulent leaves will grow anywhere as long as there's no super direct sunlight. You're gonna be able to grow your succulent leaves easily with whatever you have, whatever works for you. The first succulent that I ever started off with, and is so close to my heart, it's nothing fancy. They're probably at every local nursery or hardware store, places they sell succulents, is the ghost plant succulent. They're so easy to propagate. They do well in direct sunlight, in the shade, ground cover, all of the above. And I just really started propagating from the very beginning, and I still propagate them till this day. Let me show you guys a little collection that I have. This whole side is pretty much all through propagated leaves, which I'm really proud of. Here's some more on this side. There's some more ghost plants right here. The ones we're gonna propagate today are some of these ghost plants, so let me show you a little more in depth on how I do it. Oh my gosh, I hope there's no spiders under here. And again, I'm not going to use any gardening tools. I'm going to use my hands. I say don't be emotionally attached to your plants. The more you take and the more you pull, the more that they will give you. Where did this heat come from? I have no idea. Ooh, I just found a crested. Oh my gosh. This is the first crested one that I found. Ooh, it's so pretty. Let me show you guys. I have something really exciting. This is my first crested succulent that I found out of this entire batch. Check it out. I hope that's a good view. Let me see. Here's that crested succulent. It basically has multiple growing points, and it comes out like a fan-like shape. It's like a huge cluster. So here's the two, so you can see this is a regular ghost plant. It has one huge flower. The whole thing is just, you can tell it has one growing point. Compared to this one, it kind of just is like a big cluster. In the growing process, it had a mutation in the plant's DNA. So it sort of just grew its own little individual shape. Sometimes instead of the stem coming out round like this one's still pretty round, but sometimes they'll come out a fan-like shape like a mermaid, which is actually pretty cool. But yeah, how exciting is that? I'm gonna put this one in its own little container and see how big it gets. Crested succulents are a lot more of a collector's item too, because they're a lot more rare and they're just really unique and different. And yeah, really beautiful and really unique. And I'm gonna save that one to the side. This is probably around the smallest size that I'm cutting from the entire pot. It's a pretty good size compared to something like this, where it's a little too small for me to pull. and it's going to take a little longer to grow if you put it in its own pot. So it's better just to leave it attached to the stem so it can have a little more time to mature. This is what I was able to pull from the entire bowl right here, which is a pretty good amount. So don't forget, when it comes to propagation, keep your crusty stems. I know they don't look like much, especially if there weren't any babies left. They would just look pretty bland and boring and just a bunch of sticks. But I promise you, eventually within the next couple of months, a whole bunch of babies are going to start popping up, and that's another way to multiply your succulent collection. So here's some leaves that are left behind, and I also like taking some of those for propagation. But once you pluck all the heads, just go around and start plucking your leaves. Another thing I like to keep in mind when plucking leaves, I like to leave a few leaves behind. I think it just promotes growth when it comes to new babies popping up. So pull as many as you want. But for me, I think what's worked over the years is just leaving a few of the leaves behind. Like I said, it just promotes growth for those babies to start popping up. And yeah, that's what I like to do. And I'm just going to go around and start plucking as many leaves as I could. Another cool thing about this plant for propagation, you don't really need to take them and bring them to your propagation station. One thing that I love to do with this plant, since it grows so well, is just pluck a couple of the leaves and put them right back into the pot. It'll continue doing its thing, and a bunch of babies will continue to grow, like some here. Succulents are really prolific growers in general, but this plant, it doesn't take much for them to grow, and I like to just put them right back into the pot, like I said, and they will continue to give you babies. A bunch of leaves from the heads that we pulled from the pot over here, and like I said before, use what you already have. Don't worry if you feel like you don't have enough plants to pull leaves from. I started off with only a few heads of succulents, so let's say, for example, if you even have 2 succulents to start off with, this is more than enough leaves to pull from. You can actually even sacrifice a whole head and pull every single leaf off of one and start with those leaves and start propagating. Eventually, when you have more of a mature plant, when this one grows its own root system, it'll grow more leaves, it'll get bigger, and you'll be able to start that process all over again. You'll be able to pull the leaves and put them right back onto the soil, and these are going to give you babies. These might even give you more than 1 baby, and even though you have 5 leaves, you might get 10 babies. That's the really cool thing about succulents. Sometimes they work overtime and give you twins, quadruplets, like I like to call it. But yeah, some of those leaves, it just really depends on the growing conditions, but they will give you more than 1 plant, which is really cool. Now I want to show you how I like to lay them on the soil. Typically, I would let these ends callus up for the next day or 2. Callus pretty much meaning letting these ends dry up and building a little scab over the freshly pulled end. That just ensures you're not transferring any bacteria into the leaf. It's not going to take in any extra moisture from the morning dew or stuff like that. But with these leaves, they grow really well, and I don't really need to give them time to callus. So I'm just going to put them right onto the soil, but I'm not going to give them any water for the next couple of weeks at least, just so they can grow their own root system. That's what I personally like to do. Let's just put them right onto the soil. And if you're wondering, this soil here that I have is cactus soil. Nothing special. You don't really need to add anything to it. You would just basically need to start off with a basic bag of cactus soil, no specific kind. If you could find any from Home Depot, that's where I like getting mine. But go ahead and place it into anything you have, paper plates, if you have an extra lid, if you have cups, anything that you can put soil into, go ahead and put your soil right into it. And yeah, let's just start spreading all the leaves. So this is what I have going on. For the most part, sometimes I do like to take my time, like this batch over here, and I'll literally stand here and put them really neatly one by one, as you can see. I'll just lay them right next to each other, really uniformly and really neat. But you don't really need to do all that. I plucked so many leaves today, I don't really feel like taking the time to put every single one right next to each other. But if you just sprinkle them on top of the soil like this, and just make sure not laying on top of each other, and just go around and fix them, put them right onto the soil. And that's pretty much it. They'll do just fine right here for a couple of weeks, like I said, and I'm not going to give them any water, just so they have time to callus up and form that scab while they're laying on top of the soil here. Here is a few that are successfully propagating. In a month or so, you'll start to get babies like these. So cute, and it has some healthy roots there. So many babies. Here's another one. These ones are quite small, but if you look really closely, these ones are just starting to sprout. Keep in mind, some do take longer than the others depending on the type of succulent, which is fine. They're all gonna grow at their own pace. So just be patient. Give them water once to twice per week. That's all they need. I feel like if you give them more water than they need, then that's when you start experiencing a mushy mess. If the mother leaf will die before it'll sprout any babies, and that's where it gets a little bit more difficult, and you feel like you're not going to be able to propagate. I think that's the point where a lot of people give up and they feel like it's too hard to propagate leaves, and it's really not that hard. I think you're just babying them a little bit too much, giving them a little too much attention, too much water. Succulents have a love-hate relationship, and neglect goes a long way. So I would just, like I said, water them only about once to twice per week, and that's all they pretty much need. It just takes a lot of patience and a little extra time. The most important thing, you don't want any sunlight to hit these guys, or you're going to end up with dying leaves and they're just not going to be able to propagate. It's going to lessen your chance of your plants growing any babies. So just keep that in mind. We're going to start putting all of these heads into their own little pots here. I just like to keep some pots on hand that I get from the dollar store. It comes in a pack like this. Here's a pack of 12 for $1.25. You really can't beat it. Succulents on a budget, you know me. So here I have a little bit of cactus soil and some perlite. I'm just going to mix it up a little bit. Nice airy gritty soil when it comes to your succulents. That's going to ensure that your succulents don't sit in water too long when you water them. So super important, you want a really nice airy gritty soil. You can add different elements to it, like red lava rocks, decomposed granite, some perlite. But for today, I'm just keeping it simple. I have a good amount of perlite and some cactus soil. Just some standard cactus soil from Home Depot works just fine. But I do like adding, like I said, perlite to it so it can give it a nice grittiness. All right, so now I'm gonna grab my pot here and I'm just gonna add some of the soil. If you're like me and like to put your succulents right into your pots without callusing over, remember it's fine to do so, just don't give them any water. You don't want to risk your plant dying and taking in any extra moisture. Remember, those are freshly cut ends, so they're more prone to definitely taking in more moisture than they need. And from experience, a lot of my plants didn't make it. I thought I was doing a good thing by trying to give it extra water, but at the end they didn't even make it. So I just check within a couple of weeks. I'll pull one out of the pot to see if it has roots, and if it does, that's a good time and a good indicator to give them a good douse of water. So that's pretty much it. That's going to end today's video. We just gave ourselves 3 new opportunities to propagate succulents. The first being all of the succulent leaves, which are going to eventually grow their own babies. Second being through stem cuttings. We have all these heads here that are going to eventually grow their own root system. And number 3, those stems that we cut from earlier are eventually going to start growing little babies of their own. So not only do those leaves give you babies, but these other opportunities are great as well. So keep them in mind next time you're trying to explore and just figure out what's going to give you the most babies. I hope all these tips that you learned today help you grow your very own beautiful succulent garden. I hope it's a good start for you if you haven't started yet. It's definitely beginner friendly. But if anyone has any more tips or tricks when it comes to propagation or any more questions about today's video, please leave them in the comments down below. And thank you so much for watching. Until next time, I'll see you in the next one. Bye.